welcome to Elevate with C&M Coaching. My name is Maggie, and today I want to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is the top 5 script myths that I hear on a really regular basis. So for the last 10 years, I've been specifically focusing on sales call training in the automotive industry. We also do a lot of customer service training as well. Pretty much anybody who is picking up the phone and making a phone call, they should have some sort of training, especially if they're going to be working directly with your customers. So one of the things that we focus on here at C&M Coaching is using a word track, or as some people like to call it, a script. And what we do is we basically use these to help us stay on track and to make sure that everybody on the team that we're training is all following the same processes. We don't have one person doing this and one person doing that. Everyone's doing the same thing. And this allows us to ensure a nice uniformed message to our customers or potential customers. And that also helps you make sure nothing is getting missed or skipped. So first up on this list is that scripts make me sound robotic. And I think that sometimes there's this misconception that because of the type of business that I own, that I don't understand the difficulty and the stress of trying to learn a script. And that's just not true. I completely understand why people feel like using a script might make them sound robotic. However, I also have the perfect solution to this topic, and that is, if you feel like a script is making you sound robotic, then the easiest thing that you can do is learn the material. And I know that's not what people usually want to hear. They want to hear me go, oh yeah, I know, I totally understand. Yeah, you're going to sound like a robot, but that's not what I'm going to say, because the fact of the matter is this. If you watch your favorite movie, think about what your favorite movie in the whole wide world is, and then recognize that that all started with a script. And as you're watching that movie, are you thinking to yourself, wow, these people really sure sound scripted? Of course not. You're caught up in the moment, you're enjoying the movie, you're living in that minute. And that's pretty much because those people know those scripts inside and out. And it's the same exact concept for whatever it is that you might be scripting at your business. The more you know the material, the easier it is for you to sound natural. And so it really doesn't matter what's in your script, as long as you make sure that you know your information, you know the steps, and that you practice good enough, you're not going to sound robotic. The second one on the list is that scripts don't work on my customers. This is honestly one of my favorites because I hear this one all the time. One of the first things that people usually say to me when they learn what I do is they go, oh, well, my customers are different. And I assure you that they're not. People are people regardless of where they come from. They're still people. They still have to purchase something from you, or they need to purchase something, maybe not necessarily from you, but that's the ultimate goal, is to get them to purchase it from you. So how do we accomplish that? Well, the best thing that you can do is have some sort of a process in place. And even though you might have a different demographic that you might be marketing to, it doesn't change the fact that a process is still better than not having a process. So the best thing is to take a look at your customer, then take a look at your demographic and figure out how to work backwards from there. What am I trying to accomplish here? Do I maybe need to change some verbiage or some phrasing so that it more matches my demographic in my area? Sure, that's totally fine. But don't assume that a process won't work on your customers. It just might need to be finely tuned or tweaked. And, that's one of the things that we do, custom script writing, because not everyone is the same. There is not a one-size-fits-all approach, I believe, to phone training. You really have to figure out what it is that your customer needs and then how you can help them move forward from there. But the script will work on your customers. We just might have to tweak it a little bit. Number 3 is more directed at the person using the script, and that is, scripts don't work for me. Now, I will tell you that nothing in the whole wide world will work for you if you approach it with that type of an attitude. Of course, you can't start a new training program and go, well, this just isn't going to work. You have to give it a shot. What is it that Albert Einstein said? Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And therefore, if what you're doing now isn't working, then that would be the definition of insanity. Try something else. See what else you can do. And sometimes a word track can be the one change that you need, because you need to have that steady, constant process that you follow. So it can be the one thing to help take you to the next level. Let me give you an example. I can hear a sales call where somebody will call up and ask a question. Let's use our automotive space as an example. Hey, I was wondering if you had XYZ vehicle available. Now, instead of the salesperson walking through a process and asking some questions about what type of vehicle that customer is looking for or getting more information about the one the customer is specifically calling on, they'll just go, yeah, we got, a bunch of them in stock. Come see them if you want. And the customer will say, okay, thanks, bye. And that's the end of the conversation. If you don't have some sort of process in place, then you don't even need to bother answering the phone, because if you think about the effectiveness of that example I just gave you, there isn't any. We're just answering questions. And answering questions over and over and over doesn't help you bring people in the door. Building a relationship with them over the phone does. And that's the whole entire purpose behind our scripts and our processes, is to make sure that we're building that relationship. We have an entire step focused around it called rapport building, where we're trying to engage with that customer and determine their needs. Number 4 is I'm afraid of the customer's questions and objections. And this is 100% a reason why you should have a process, because if you write down and make a list of all of the objections that you're faced with during your sales calls, chances are you can come up with some good rebuttals to those. I think one of the best examples of this is if you have ever seen the movie The Wolf of Wall Street. It's actually one of the major scenes in the movie when he asks them, all right, what kind of objections are you facing on a daily basis? And he writes them all down on the board, and then he comes up with rebuttals for every single one of them. And that is a great way for you to approach any objection. What am I trying to accomplish out of this question or objection I'm faced with from the customer? And how can I turn this into a win for me? And that's what we have to think about. How can I answer their question while still creating a sense of urgency and still trying to accomplish that goal? And then I think from there, you just write your verbiage, you memorize it, you practice it, you get to know it, and you keep it nearby so that if it comes up, you can pull up that card and go, all right, I've already got this planned out. It's literally peace of mind for being able to handle any situation that might come up, as long as you have a good and well-prepared list. And finally, number 5, I sell more than anyone else. I don't need your phone script. The thing about this is that a lot of times I often find that the top salesperson, specifically on the dealership level, also doesn't necessarily love the phone. They like selling to people in person, and they aren't too keen on picking up the phone and making phone calls. And if that's not you, then awesome, great. Kudos to you if you really like to use the phone and you've practiced your process and you're doing a great job. But a lot of times, what I tend to find is the most experienced or the most tenured salesperson also tends to be the one person that's not necessarily the top phone performer. And the reason for that is, again, body language and being able to physically sell something to someone in person. Remember that when you're on the phone, you're not trying to sell that product over the phone if we're talking about vehicles. Our goal is to get the customer in the door so we can show them the vehicles and show them options and features and make sure that we're finely tuned in to exactly what they're looking for when they're trying to make that next purchase. And so using a script is designed to help you follow a process to handle phone calls, not sell cars. And that's the other thing too that I think is super important, because when you're building rapport in person, you're looking at them, you've got facial expressions, but over the phone you have to use vocal cues. If you're not really good at using vocal cues, then following a word track takes the guesswork out of handling phone calls. It also stops you from giving the customer too much information, which can push them away, right? So we really need to be careful about saying, well, I'm really good at selling cars, but remember, the phone is a completely different method of communication. It's not in person. One of the ways that selling a vehicle and also handling a sales call are alike is that you should have a process for both. I know sometimes people wing it when it comes to selling a car in person, but a lot of times you have some sort of a hook or some sort of a technique that you're using in person when you have a customer there. So why is the phone any different? Why is following a script any different? Why is learning some different techniques that can help you control the conversation as well as accomplish your goals a bad thing? I don't think it is. I think it's just the approach behind it. And also remember, it's better if it's a word track and not necessarily a script. There's certain things that you want to try to say word for word in a word track. And then there's other things where you should be able to have freedom to kind of move about and use different descriptive words to help you accomplish those goals. My final thoughts on this are, if you're completely against using a script, it could just be because you haven't found the right one to work for you, but they are super effective. Having a process is the best way for you to provide awesome customer service and get more people in the door. I also believe that you shouldn't always say the same thing over and over, and you should have different processes and different scripts or word tracks for different customers depending on what level in the pipeline that they're in. You're obviously not going to have that same conversation with somebody 3 or 4 times when you're doing follow-up calls. That would be incredibly odd. So you do need to customize everything that you're doing and saying to match exactly what you're hoping to get out of that phone call. I would like to close in saying, don't hate the word track. It's not going to hurt you. It doesn't bite. It's the easiest thing in the world to help you control your conversations and stay on task. So don't hate it. Embrace it. You got this.